Welcome everybody to the ISM New Jersey webinar series. We'd like to welcome all of our ISM members, our chapter partners, and any guests that may be joining us today. At this point, I'm going to be turning our program over to Jeffrey Luft, who is also one of our program directors with ISM New Jersey. At this time, I'll let Jeffrey introduce the program and also our speaker for today.
Thank you, Kathy, and good afternoon or good morning if you're out on the West Coast. I think we've got a really fascinating discussion today. We in supply chain are all about magic. We get product from A to Z, there's food on the shelf, but it all starts in a warehouse. And in every warehouse, there is a superhero. Our superhero today likes to be known as Flash. Now, while Queen likes to say he's the savior of the universe, I'm going to think of Chuck as the savior of supply chain. Chuck is currently with a great company, Procensis, and we'll be talking about their solution and how they make people more efficient in our DCs. Chuck?
Hi, welcome. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. I appreciate that. So with the explosion, there's just been a convergence of things that have happened in supply chain, and particularly in warehouses and distribution. So by my count, there were about 7, but as the pandemic has worn on, my memory has faded a little bit. They used to be very prescient, but clearly we know about the explosion in e-commerce. There was an explosion in e-commerce, an explosion in demand that was growing beforehand, before the pandemic, before folks started getting deliveries to the house for everything instead of going out. There was this tremendous growth in package delivery, and also delivery size has gone from very, very large quantities, and they've gotten to smaller and smaller and smaller quantities. Consequently, what's happened is the transaction volume, inventory transaction volume in organizations has just shot up. There are new companies that have arisen that have just a distribution, just a distribution business model. And then of course those existed before, but there are more and more and more. There's innovation, there are disruptors that are coming out, they're redesigning the categories in this area, they're doing new things, focused on last mile delivery and new and different ways. They're franchises and distribution now. But as the package volume has gotten, the quantity has decreased, and as the volume has increased dramatically, so has the number of warehouse inventory transactions. Honestly, the curve has been like this. Now, I teach my salespeople something simple. If you go to Google Maps and you turn on the satellite view and you find the intersection of 2 major interstates, and you look for a cluster of white roofs, and you zoom in into that satellite view on those white roofs, you're going to see a large number of warehouses, distribution centers, a lot of names that you know. I venture to say that every single person has seen warehouses going up everywhere. Some of them are smaller, 80,000, 75,000, 100,000 square feet. Others are 500,000, 800,000, 1 million square feet warehouses. And of course, the big boys get all of the attention. They get all of the recognition. Lost in that are all the companies that are in between the very biggest boys, the A word and the D word and the U word and the F word, although that's something totally different. But everyone else, they have this need to improve their productivity. Why? Because there's been a labor shortage. We know about the labor shortage. It's one of the other things that's contributed to the struggles for these organizations to move the product effectively. Now, I'm an industrial engineer. I know this is a webinar, but if you're an industrial engineer or you're responsible for continuous improvement or operations excellence or just an operation or warehouse, raise your hand. Very good. Very good. Thank you.
I counted 36.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeffrey, for keeping track.
Yep.
The truth be told, all those industrial engineers and all the people responsible for organizational improvement know what we industrial engineers know, that it always comes down to time. Time saved, time that could be better spent doing something else of higher value, and elimination of lost time. So what Procensis aims to do is we aim to give the warehouse workers some of that time back, to the organization by reducing the time spent doing their primary job, and that is the warehouse transactions, the largest volume of which is typically picking. Okay, so how do we do that? So there are a lot of different scenarios that people are out there doing now. I can remember the days when I first got into industry, and you can see there's a lot of gray hairs in this beard, that we did everything on paper. And I remember the days when the entire business shut down for 1 to 2 days, and every single person in the company had to take a physical inventory, and we wrote tags down, and we did all these things. It's a tremendous cost to the company. Along came computers, and then we would do these things, and we would print out lists, and then the list would go back to someone, and someone would enter those transactions into the computer. Now, a lot of organizations are still doing it that way today. And of course, the next graduation is someone said, well, there's these fancy things called barcodes that were invented many, many years ago. Look it up on the internet. The barcode is actually quite old, although the technology's improved dramatically, and the way the barcodes are scanned has improved dramatically. But they introduced something called a barcode reader. Okay. And then that barcode reader, and that would have to hook up to something. And then they came up with another version that we, just for fun, the industry likes to call a brick on a stick. Okay. And the brick on a stick said, well, we don't need to connect that barcode reader to a laptop or a desktop computer anymore. In fact, that really just anchored us to something, to a desk or to an area or something to that effect. And honestly, our Wi-Fi might not be that good. And so someone came up with a brick on a stick, and it's a great product. This happens to be one by Honeywell. It's a CK65 with an integrated scanner. Now, Wi-Fi, of course, is related to this. You don't have a long cord coming off of this thing, traveling around the warehouse with you. Oops, it beeped at me. I pressed something unintentionally. But lo and behold, what we found and what the industry found is that there is a better way. And the way is to go hands-free. Whatever your system is, whatever your system of picking, put away, receiving, shipping, whenever you're moving some volume of product, to be able to go hands-free, it frees up these. When you free up these, gone are the days of fumbling with the equipment. Gone are the days of looking away. Okay, or certainly minimizing the days of looking away. Now, this device here, this is a heck of a device. This thing is ruggedized for industry. It's designed to be drop resistant. Okay, don't tell my boss I did that. Actually, he does it all the time. It's designed to be drop resistant, and it's designed to withstand that, and it will still operate. That's no problem. But if you break one, say you ran over it with a forklift, okay, that's lost time. If you didn't have a spare, that'd be decreased capacity in this device. And you'd have to go to some backup plan, or some person will have to be rededicated to some other task. But when you do that, you reach for it. Oh, and this is a big clunky device. And for those of you that are used to using these, I'm going to scan the product, and now I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to put it over here on my pallet. And then I'm going to come back to it, and I'm going to push some buttons, and I'm going to look at it. And by the way, while I'm looking at this, something else might be going on over here, something potentially unsafe. So, and I do that, and then I go on to the next one, and I go here, and then I put it down. Then I get the next product, and I put that down. I go, oh, wait a minute, where did I put that thing again? Oh, it's over here. All right. What I just demonstrated to you are precious seconds. And one of the oldest things that I've heard in business for over 30 years was, but it only takes a few seconds. Times 500,000 picks per year, a few seconds is 1.5 million seconds.
And as we all know,
Okay.
time is money.
Time is money. Now you do all the fancy math, you get out your calculator and your fingers and your toes, and you figure out what that means to an organization. And what I like to do is, if we can eliminate a half a second, a second and a half, 3 seconds. Some of these average pick times, okay, can be 15 seconds, they can be 30 seconds, they can be, somewhere in that ballpark. If we can eliminate 2 or 3 or even 4 seconds off a process, you can save 20 to 50%, depending on how you're doing things now. Now, that's not 20 to 50% off of all your labor, right? Because material handling time doesn't change. The time that it takes to pick up this box of chips doesn't change if that's what you're doing. If you want to talk about reducing material handling time, that's a conversation for a different webinar. And by the way, I love that stuff too. It's not our business, but I love to talk about it. But what does change is the time that I'm spent in the device, the time that I am spent handling the computing device, okay? And also the time I'm spent fumbling with a less than ideal interface, okay? So what we do is when we go hands-free, we free up our work, we free up our body, we free up our hands, and we keep our eyes focused forward. So what I'm going to do for you right now is I'm going to show you what that looks like, okay? I'm going to show you picking. And what you're seeing now on the screen is you're seeing a live view of the device that I'm using right here, okay? Now, to dial it up just a little bit, what did I do with that? I'd like to take this device with me. That way I have it for reference. This is where I like to say we create warehouse superheroes, and there's different kinds of warehouse superheroes. There's the Flash, which is one of my favorites. And of course, there are technology superheroes, where with the use of technology, like a Batman, they can augment their own capabilities and they can achieve a whole lot more. So what I have that device you see on the screen right here on my arm. This is a Honeywell CT40 by way of example. There are other products from Zebra and Panasonic and others. And this is a revolutionary back-of-hand barcode scanner called ProGlove, okay? You can see that the ProGlove scanner, okay, just with a simple tap of a button here with my thumb, I can actually scan product. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to execute this case pick for you. I'm going to execute, several picks with a case pick. And you can see how productive that I can become. Now, yes, I may have exaggerated a little bit with the CK65 with the fumbling, but anybody who spent time in a warehouse, and I have, that stuff does happen. But let's show you what it looks like. The very first thing that happens is it tells me to go to CO102. Okay, I scan my bin. It says pick 2 cases of Bud Light. I pick 2 cases of Bud Light. I double tap the interface for enter. I now go to DO103, where I'm looking for 1 case of Coke Zero. Okay. And guess the question is, am I in the right spot? Do I have the right thing? Well, I can see the Coke Zero right there. Okay, yep, I'm good to go. Double tap. I move on. EO102. I'm looking for 2 cases of this. Oh, and by the way, the companion display you see, now I've been looking at this device, okay, but the companion display gives me exactly what I need as well. So in theory, I can now take this off. What am I saying in theory? In practice, I can take this off. I can leave it in a cart or leave it mounted on a forklift. It's connected by Bluetooth, and I can just look at this device, okay? And I was at EO103, okay? So scan. Oh, FO102. Sorry, I clicked something by accident. Okay, FO102. I need 1 case of A&W root beer. Boom. Now we're going to go fast. Okay, AO203. I need 1 case of tea. AO202. 2 cases of chips, CO202, 1 case of wipes, EO202, oops, I clicked something extra. That's operator error, but that's what you get when you when you have a salesman do this and not a warehouse person. But as you can see, I can move very quickly through the transactions. I don't need to see the device. I don't need to refer back to my cart. I don't need to touch the device. I have everything that I need here. And as I said, depending on what your scenario is, we can improve productivity from 20 to 50% in your warehouse management transactions. Now, interestingly enough, if you draw your eye to the top, as I was picking, you would have seen some lines that were going back and that were moving as I picked. Now, because I was talking too much, as we salespeople do, they may or may not have hit the green. What that is something that we call dash. Nowadays in warehouse environments, they have begun to do incentive pay, where someone might come in at a $15 an hour rate, and then they'll get an incentive pay. Now, we know that there are warehouses out there where people can make as much as an additional 25% or even higher, maybe even 50% in rare cases for their best workers. We spoke with one who gets a very small base pay, and then they actually do, it's a very large company in food and beverage business where they actually do by the pick, and they can make good, decent money. But now if you're one of those workers, you want to know whether you're keeping up, right? What dash there, you can see as I do this, those lines are going down, they're going down, they're going down, because I'm no longer picking. And dash gives you real-time feedback so that you know if you're making your rate, if you're able to keep up. There are companies with labor management systems who have these things in there. They can check at lunch or they can check at the end of the day, but it might be across a large warehouse, and that's money wasted. Well, I'd like to know in real time if I'm able to keep up. You know, down the road, I'd like to know, you know, maybe I'm the competitive sort. Am I in the leaderboard? There are companies that are doing incentives now. There's one, a really cool story where they actually have vending machine. Okay, and you have that vending machine with awards in it. And we know one of our shipping manager actually used to work for Amazon, and they would go over they would announce over loudspeaker, such and such, you know, Jane gets a $100 gift card at the end of the day because of her performance. All that's real. That vending machine, if you're in the leaderboard at the end of the day, they put your employee ID into the vending machine and boom, you can pick whichever one you want. And that's your little bonus little perk for the end of the day or the end of the week or whatever the period is. So there's a lot of innovation going on out there, but it all comes back to real-time feedback. It doesn't help to know at the end of the day if I'm meeting my goals. I need to know in real time. That way I can actually change my behavior and improve my behavior. Because when it comes right down to it, people want to work hard. People want to do a good job overwhelmingly. And certainly the ones that do are the ones that you want to keep. And they're the ones that you want to incentivize to stay and do the best work you can. In fact, you want to keep them forever. Side benefit is this is hard work. I'm walking on concrete all day. Sometimes I'm in cold storage, wearing overalls, I'm wearing gloves, doing hard work, lifting things, toting that barge, lifting that bale. And we don't want to put any unnecessary toll on their body. Again, raise your hand if you're an industrial engineer. You know a little bit something about micromotion. All of this creates fatigue. All of this creates fatigue. If we can keep our hands here, if we can keep our focus here, our accuracy naturally improves to 99%. 99% just because I've got my eyes on the work. My safety goes up dramatically because I'm not distracted as much. You know, I go to drop this, oops, instinctively I want to grab for it. When I grab for it, that's when accidents can happen. I can fall. Again, you can see the device is fine. Otherwise, it would have blinked and gone out on the screen. That's when accidents happen. Okay, nobody wants to get hurt, but they happen when we're distracted and unexpected things happen. So the longer we can keep people focused, and what we want to do is we want to make it easy on them. We want to make it intuitive and natural for them to stay focused. So what we do is we provide hardware that gives a very intuitive hands-free experience. The other thing we do is this demo that you see here is built on something that some of you have seen before. It's built on a green screen, which is a terminal emulator. I really want to build in the Matrix characters falling down just because I'm a sci-fi geek, but you get the idea. This is a very difficult interface to learn and to use. We can then take that interface and we can improve it with software on the device. Nothing that's going to give the IT team any kind of angst. And we can make it intuitive, and we can make it easy, and we can reduce keystrokes, and we can make it easy to read. Because if you're like me and you take off your glasses, you really can't see much. But some of our senior workers or folks with glasses may be our best employees, and we certainly want to make sure that we provide exactly what we need to keep them healthy, happy, and here as long as possible, because retention is everything. And the really cool part is when we improve the software, when we provide additional functionality like this, where you can actually see the product, and this is not part of the warehouse management system. This is something that Procensis adds, where you can actually see what the inventory is. When we do that, we're able to make this intuitive and easy to use. My shipping manager, who I brought in here and oftentimes does these demos for me, we do this demo live for our customers. This is how we engage with you the first time, so you can literally see a solution that will work for you in action. I said, Jerry, how long before you were productive? How long before you felt like you understood it? He said, the second pick. I said, what was the hardest part, Jerry? He said, I didn't understand your warehouse. I had to figure out where the warehouse locations were. And in fact, we have customer testimonials where we put these solutions in a customer's hand, their words, our pickers were working in 15 minutes. We taught them the basic procedures of the company. We taught them the warehouse layout, and they were to get off and working in 15 minutes. Now, this is by assembling what we consider to be best-in-class tools across the industry. The names that folks know in warehouse and mobility equipment: Zebra, Honeywell. We happen to love Honeywell, but Panasonic, RealWear for heads-up displays, which is really crazy stuff, you know, where you project the image on in front of your eye, a 7-inch tablet in front of your eye about there. ProGlove with a revolutionary barcode scanner that comes in numerous forms. This happens to have the display. Other people might not need the display, so we don't offer the display. It's all focused on what's going to make folks productive. We can even take it one step further. There are folks who may or may not be familiar where you can actually use voice, where we can actually talk to the device and the device talks back to us. Now, again, we don't want to give tremors to the IT team. All of this happens on this mobile computer. And this thing is a phone form factor. And they've gotten powerful enough that you can do this on-device computing. Okay, and they're in a factor that's become familiar with everyone, because I'll tell you, once my mom has this, she's not really going to have much of a problem switching to this and adding this to her day. Where honestly, if she's not familiar with the technology, this might actually be a little intimidating, because this is familiar. And by the way, this one happens to have an integrated barcode scanner too, and so there's lots of different options available. Interestingly enough, on a deployment that I did, the most knowledgeable person in the room was actually one of the pickers. The picker was the one who was asking all the technical questions about the Android operating system and device and how it worked. And once you have this on the floor, don't think of it as a phone. Indeed, many of them aren't phones. We could add a SIM chip in there, but many of them, and most of them that are sold, don't even include that. But once you have the mobile computer on the floor, then your return on investment can really begin. You can add voice and take it to a new level of productivity. You can have unified communications across your organization with point-to-point talk. You can add other applications that your organization can use. Heck, you can put these on the road with your drivers. So once you have that, You now have a new platform, a new springboard upon which you can find new levels of productivity. And it all starts with considering things in a different way. And I'll leave you with this. Think about your productivity. Open yourself up to the new solutions that are out there. By the way, this is probably a little less expensive than that. The affordability is amazing. You can get a return on investment to allow you to pay for these things in 6 months to a year. On a 3-year depreciation cycle, that means if it's a year to payback, you're getting 2 years free. 2 years free added productivity. You're free to do with whatever you want. If you can improve your accuracy to 99%, and we have customers who've told us they have inaccurate picks from 5 to 10%, and they got a very busy quality assurance department who's checking all that. And then we've got very busy people who now have to take that product and put it away again. That's all time you can have back that you can use for other things. We've had someone walk in who said, I need to hire 25% additional workers and I can't find them. I figure I need to get more productive. That's my only way. And that's exactly what we did for them. So it's the same, but at the same time, it's revolutionary and it's very different. If you simply free up your hands, you free up your brain, and you free up your workers to become fast, accurate, safe, and tough. Faster, more accurate, safer, and by the way, you saw me drop these things. They're designed for industry, this one included, and they are tough. Welcome to hands-free warehouse transactions.
Chuck, somebody asked, excuse me, how do we ensure that the pickers are picking what they're supposed to?
So there's always a modicum of, trust, of course. But what we can do is by providing the tools for them so that they can verify and they can know what that is. So for instance, what I displayed here for you today is a demo. Okay, but if they scan, there are different types of picks. Sometimes there's a UPC pick. I told you I have 2 walls here. There's a wall over here that's designed for a microfilament scenario, where you're actually scanning UPC codes and say, I need 4 pieces of something. I scan the UPC code 4 times in a countdown fashion, which is typical of that business, or certainly a number of organizations that work in that business. Well, if the UPC code they scan is inaccurate for the order, they're going to get feedback. They're going to get an error on the mobile computer. They're going to get lights on the Pro Glove. They're going to blink in red, and they're going to get a haptic feedback that's going to buzz on their wrist, just like you would have if you have your phone in your back pocket and you feel the phone vibrate, or you get a meeting alert or something to that effect. So that's one way. And then we also can provide other tools where, they can actually see, oh yes, indeed, I want the flavor variety Quaker oatmeal, not just the plain old maple and brown sugar. Although personally, I like apples and cinnamon, but you do you.
And from an investment perspective, we're trying to cut costs. We're trying to be more efficient. How do we go to management and convince them that this is the right financial investment for our business?
Once again, industrial engineers, raise your hand, cost benefit analysis. But truth be told, everyone can do this analysis. It's pretty simple. Classic industrial engineering says, get out your stopwatch. How long does it take you to do this stuff? I myself had a picker in here and we went into this very space and we did 10 picks and we did it several times. And off the top of my head, the 10 picks took 2.5 minutes in this scenario. That was with this combination of hardware and software improvement. Prior, we had used the CK65. Okay, again, fantastic device. It does everything you want it to do. But the time was certainly slower. I believe our time was roughly a little over 3 minutes for 10 picks on average. So if you understand how long it's taking you to do this now, and you have an estimate of how long it's going to take you in the future, and you understand what your labor rate is, you can easily say, this is my time saved times my labor rate, and this is the time that you can have back to do something very productive. And from that, you determine your return on investment. How long will it take me to get my return on this expenditure? Whenever somebody says, I want to talk about price, you respond with value, because ultimately they don't really care what they're buying. They don't care if I'm using this barcode scanner in this format. All they care about is that if I used little purple lollipops and you were able to speed my workers up 20%, they'd say, buy the little purple lollipops, wouldn't they? If they don't, well, that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again when expecting a different result. So it's really about value. It's really about improvement. Where am I today? Where can I be tomorrow? Okay, what is that going to free up for me? And then that's the case that you take to management. Not, I found this really cool thing, I like it, and I want to spend X number of dollars. That's a loser every time. Ask a salesman.
It's the warehouse worker, the floor worker who recognizes the value, but we're not paying him or her for that kind of analysis on why we should invest.
That's correct.
Let me throw out to our audience, if you have any questions, please type them into the chat, and we'll ask Chuck of them. Chuck, behind you, you've got a 3-level wall.
I do.
What happens when we go 4, 5, 6? What happens when we stack to the ceiling?
Mm-hmm.
How does that improve? Because now I'm up on a cherry picker of some sort.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how does that improve and ensure that I'm being accurate and efficient at the same time?
So there's a couple of scenarios in that. So when you have you could be doing a situation where you have a forklift. Okay, let's start there. That's a little more classic. Everybody's familiar with a forklift, as common as the cherry pickers are. There are some people who haven't seen them or operated them. Well, you might need to scan a barcode high. Okay. The barcode scanner that's built into this is Honeywell's Flex Range scanner, and it can scan up to 10 meters or 30-ish feet. Okay. So that's a pretty darn long way. Now I can grab my device, scan up. I don't have to dismount. I don't have to do anything special. Time saved. I can mount this onto my forklift. I can put a tether on it just in case. I want to make sure that it stays close. Or I can use this device and I can pull up and I don't even have to dismount my forklift. Now let's change the scenario to a cherry picker. I climb onto my cherry picker. I attach my safety harness because these things are going to go up. Oh, look at that, cut my arm off. I just literally pulled the green curtain back, and you saw I happen to know that warehouses, the desired height is 42 feet nowadays, roughly. Don't quote me exactly, but it's roughly 42 feet. That's awful high. So that harness is important. The cheapest warehouse space you're going to get, my friend Roy Strauss, who's a warehouse consultant, says the cheapest space you're going to get in your warehouse is to go vertical. So you're going to get onto that thing, you're going to go as high as you can so you can maximize your space. Well, if you take the devices with you, you can use shorter distance scanners, which are going to be less expensive. You have all of your inventory work, all of your transactions, and full access to your system right here. And you will naturally be able to, on that sort of picker, you'll be able to replicate the same situation I have here on my feet, standing on the ground. The one caveat is, and that safety harness is really important, if I drop this, okay, chances are my human instinct kicks in. And yes, I have a safety harness, but remember, things happen when we're distracted. And I drop this, and my natural inclination is to chase it. 30 feet in the air. That's not a good situation. Thank God for the safety harness. But if you go too far, you can get yourself in a precarious situation. Safety harness will keep you alive, okay? But it's not going to keep you from being in a little slightly more difficult situation, okay? So each scenario is different. Likewise, when you go way up in the air like that, we might want to take some of these devices out of it completely. You might want to go with a voice solution where I have a scanner in my hand, I'm talking to the system, and I'm truly hands-free, and I don't need to worry about this. Out of sight, out of mind. And I mount it on the device, and I'm good to go. I mount it on the cherry picker, and I'm good to go. So your situation is unique. Every warehouse situation is unique. The warehouse management system you use, the way your warehouse is designed, your picking scenario. This picking scenario, there's one SKU per location. I don't need to scan the SKU on the product, as long as my inventory is accurate and everything's in the right location. Others, you might have multiple SKUs per location, in which case you might need to scan the location where it's coming from. You might need to scan a handling unit where it's going to, and you might need to scan the product. Your situation is unique for your product in your warehouse. Therefore, the solution that we would recommend is going to be unique. And there are many of them. The good news, it's still relatively few. In order to maximize the productivity, it really comes down to about a half a dozen different scenarios.
James DeVito wants to know, are the devices that we're talking about used for both picking and receiving, as well as stock put away?
Yes. So now, first of all, that's up to you, and it's up to your warehouse management system. But yes, so if I go back here, you can see here, this is built upon an SAP EWM demo. If the warehouse management system has a mobile user interface, or if it has a green screen, TE screen, you have access to everything within that mobile user interface on this device. And so depending on what you've chosen to use it for, you can do that. And here's one of those examples of what happens when you give the time, when you get that time back. If you're in a very busy place, and I've been in very busy places where they say, okay, we got 10 trucks came in with hundreds and hundreds of boxes. Okay, student body left, send people over to receiving, and we're going to get that stuff off those trucks. We're going to get it done. You're going to pull people from other places. Well, but I'm a picker. I only do picking. Well, you literally take your device, you put it in your pocket, and you leave. If your employees are cross-trained, and by the way, I mentioned you want to retain your best employees, they're also the ones who are most likely going to be more skilled and more likely to be cross-trained. You are cross-training your employees, right? Now you have that ability. Say the picking volume is a little low for an hour in the afternoon. Okay, student body left. I'm going to take my device and go, and I'm going to go over to receiving, or I'm going to go over to put away, or whatever transactions are available from your WMS on the mobile user interface. So the answer is a definite yes, but that's that agility that an organization can get with cross-trained employees and to be able to just take the equipment with them and go.
Tim Gelsing, I hope I said that right, comments that during the demo, we were picking left to right.
We were.
Was that by accident or by design?
In this case, it's by design. You can see that I fumbled some buttons a couple of times. That's just, again, that's just operator error. And in fact, in a way, the demo is made to be foolproof, so that, you know, I can scan anything in there for this purpose, but that's not reality. We already talked about the errors that would come up if you were scanning the wrong code, or a code that was wrong for that which is expected for location or item or that sort of thing, or the handling unit. In this case, it's by design. We want a nice repeatable process. And in fact, stay tuned. You know, there are demo videos that we put out onto social media and our website where we're actually timing the different solutions: paper, brick on a stick, Okay. Mobile with a display, voice, all these different things, and show you side-by-side comparisons in a mini time study. In order to do that, we know that we have to be comparing apples to apples. So the number of picks have to be the same. The material handling has to be the same. And so that's why this is designed in that way. One, for your presentation purposes, and two, so that I can use it in other ways so we can educate folks even further on how they can see these improvements. Other than that, your warehouse management system is really going to decide how you flow through your warehouse.
Tim, hope that answered your question. Chuck, what happens if I get a pick instruction to go to the third level, the sixth bin location on a shelf, and I get there and there's no product, which we all know has happened because physical inventories and putaways, as much as we would like them to be 100% accurate, never are. What do I do then as the picker?
So again, it'll depend on your procedures. But in this case, it's asking me to pick two. Okay, and I might pick one and move on. That's in the micro fulfillment scenario. That's one of the reasons why they scan the UPC, in a countdown fashion. I need 4 pieces. You can see I'm just jonesing for 4 Bud Lights, exactly 4. I can't drink 5 or bad things will happen. Okay, but I'm going to scan these UPC barcodes because it all comes down to customer experience. Once again, if you don't have that right quantity, if I get 5, probably nobody going to complain. But if you get 3 or 2, your customer is going to be ticked off. Okay, so again, your warehouse management system in your picking scenario is going to guide you through what that accuracy is. What we want to do is we want to reduce the need for quality assurance so that you can have that happen. But I can't determine that for any given scenario from here unless we have a discovery call with someone, with a customer or a prospect to help us to understand, how their system works and where we can go from there.
One of my past struggles has always been you had inventory in aisle 3 and the same inventory, the same SKU in aisle 12. And the pick order would assume that you're going to both locations, which we know is not efficient. So at some point, we've got to learn to be able to condense the inventory into a single warehouse location. I know I'm not going to go ahead.
Interestingly enough, simulations have shown that may not be the case. That particularly at a higher volume, higher location, higher SKU count warehouse, the simulation will show that there is an increasing productivity with random, essentially what I'll oversimplify it and exaggerate it to be random put away into different locations. And then the sophistication of warehouse management systems is getting to the point where it can route you through the warehouse in an optimized fashion to pick what's essentially closest and works with the wave if you're doing wave picking. Okay, and then you would only spill over into the second location if indeed you don't have enough for your pick quantity. So so not only is there innovations in the mobile computing and the barcode scanners themselves, but the innovations in the warehouse management systems and sophistication in picking has gotten huge. My brain immediately goes to, I want all of the like product in the like place, probably for a need for order within my brain and the way I work, and also probably some need for control. But the truth be told, if your inventory is accurate in the system, you have all the control you need. And that comes with improved processes to ensure that your accuracy goes high and stays high.
One of the things that I've seen is in combination of WMS and picking solutions is that the scanner will actually tell you when there's cross traffic coming across aisles or across rows. So you minimize, in addition to hearing and seeing the orange flashing light and the the annoying beep, beep, beep of somebody going through, this technology can help you save, physical accidents in your warehouse.
So
One of
it's fun.
our, go ahead.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. This device right here, it does just that. Coupled with a product called Insight, ProGlove Insight, and again, this is the product made by ProGlove. It essentially has proximity sensing built into it. And so if I become too close to someone, and this became really, a big selling feature when we were talking about social distancing on a, multiple times a day basis. How close am I getting to my people? So, but I always think about, if I've got somebody coming here with a Pro Glove on their wrist and they're on the forklift and they're moving close to me, okay, of course, by the time they get that close, 6 feet on a forklift, it's probably too late. But the other thing you learn is that with those analytics, you can view the motion through the warehouse. Which areas have the highest traffic? Where is the heat map? Where are your bottlenecks? By the way, if those happen to be forklift travel areas, you're more likely to have accidents. But the good news is when your workers have their head in the game, when they're hands-free and their focus is there, their likelihood improves that they're paying attention to some greater level. There's never going to be an absolute. I myself space out on a regular basis, just to ask my wife, like the movie Up, squirrel, and off I go. But, it is nice to have that technology backup, which helps us with proximity sensing. And what happens? The thing beeps, I get red lights, I get a haptic feedback on my hand. So if I happen to space out for a minute, haptic feedback on my hand, whoa, what's going on? I'm not picking. Very easy to train folks to say, if that thing's buzzing and you're not moving, something ain't right.
I muted, sorry, got it. From a savings perspective, one of our participants wants to know cloud computing or a mobile digital platform.
They're not mutually exclusive. So what we do here, what we do at Procensis is we work with an existing system. We don't provide a warehouse management system. We work with them, and we provide on-device computing as a wedge or as a supplement to your own system. So from our perspective, we're agnostic. It could be cloud computing. It could be a hosted on-premises server with an HTML web interface, or it could be an on-premises host, server with a TE green screen interface. We can do all of that. Clearly, the technology is moving toward HTML, the warehouse management system technology. Clearly, the technology is moving toward cloud and subscription. So regardless of what I prefer, that's the direction it's going. And so that's what I would expect going forward. Insofar as my preference, doesn't matter. The mobile is an adjunct or an add-on to the system that you have.
And while I know this is going to be device specific, on the stuff you've shown us, what's the battery life between charges?
Oh, you're definitely going to get more than a full shift out of this device, the Honeywell CT40, without a doubt. Unlike your iPhone, by way of example, it does have a swappable battery. So, and we do have the ability with add-on software to monitor battery health, which is important because these charging cycles, we've learned about how to charge batteries over the years. We all know that over time, the battery becomes less effective. Why? Because we end up having to buy a new phone, okay? Or a new device because it just doesn't hold a charge anymore. So now there's what's called smart charging, where it may hold off and not charge until you really need it, or the beginning of a shift. But depending on your environment, that may not be acceptable to you. And depending on what's running in here, it might be running hard, but you're definitely going to get more than a shift out of this thing. here about this device, and then you have swappable batteries. And if you have extras, you take it and you go. This one right here, this is, I believe, and I might get my numbers wrong a little bit, this is 7,000 scans, I believe, which is definitely more than a shift. And where it really becomes an issue is 2-shift operation. Okay, where where you're handing these things off and you need them to be ready to go. Which also takes me to an interesting little side note. In the scenario when you do this, okay, let's just say this battery is old. Let's say I don't have the predictive software that says the battery health is poor on this device. Okay, pull it aside for preventive maintenance. Let's just say I don't have that. Well, this one is, I've only gotten through 6 hours. I need a new device. I got to keep working. And I've got the Pro Glove. Well, the Pro Glove's brand new and it's good to go. Well, I don't want to have any downtime, do I? No, I don't. So with the Pro Glove and an Android device, it's super easy. I grab a new device, new pair of devices, I open up the barcode and I go. And I'm back to work. Just that easy. See, because what happens in warehouses is people will actually grab their device and they'll squirrel them away. This is my device. This is the one I like the best. But in reality, that's not as productive for the warehouse. Sometimes devices get lost and somebody's got them in hiding somewhere and they're sick. Now I'm a device down. So if you have them in a centralized location and you've crafted a user experience where they can grab devices, pair and go and be productive quickly, you're going to have the best scenario for output. And by the way, using mobile device management, which is a way for us to manage this fleet of mobile devices, we can make every single device identical in its operation. The user interface is the same. The packages that are loaded on there are the same. The experience is identical. They're up to date. The security patches are applied. They're geo-fenced so that they can't walk outside the area. And the second they connect to the internet, okay, they're going to tell you where the heck they are. They're going to dial home. You can't load your Gmail on there. You can't surf unseemly sites. We can take all that with mobile device management and lock it all down. And also make it user-friendly so that it becomes a single focused, purpose-built device. All that from, yes, there are things that you can do with battery. There are things you can do with shift. There are things we can do to make the user experience more better and more productive. And by the way, your IT folks are going to want to know that these devices are well managed. And mobile device management's a very common thing in enterprise nowadays, particularly the larger organization gets.
We're coming up at the top of the hour, but I do want to ask one more question here.
Yes, sir.
What are the key challenges that you've experienced in integrating this technology into existing WMS systems and processes?
Might surprise you. First challenge that comes up on the top of my head is actually Wi-Fi. So Wi-Fi for the enterprise that's functioning in mobile environment is not the same as Wi-Fi for your house. And it's not the same as the Wi-Fi in your office where people have laptops and that sort of thing. It's simply not the same. What has to happen is the Wi-Fi in an enterprise needs to be tuned. It needs to be tuned for mobility. It needs to be tuned for fast handoff from device to access point on the ceiling. All right. Access point on the ceiling. What can happen is if it's not tuned properly, the access point that's way, way, way over there might hang on to my device. And then the signal gets less and less and less and less and less. And then I might have dropped signal, dropped packets, and the reliability of the transaction may become decreased. So that's really, really important to have proper Wi-Fi. And it's not the kind of thing where you just slap something up. And mobile is definitely a different animal. Nowadays, the people are adding automation like robotics, autonomous mobile robots, and that sort of thing, particularly those AMRs. You have an entire additional layer of needs and complexity, and there's new technology for Wi-Fi that's responding to that as well, such as mesh technology and what's called CBRS, which is an LTE cell phone technology that's brought inside the premises to provide another layer of Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi-like services, let's say network services and wireless network services. So that's probably the biggest challenge. The other challenge, honestly, is folks think that they're going to come in and this is going to be their miracle. This is going to be their saving grace. I see this thing, it's really, really pretty, and they don't understand their own processes. They think that they can pile technology onto poor processes and expect miracles. And in fact, I did that with a customer who expected miracles, and I went in and I showed him this is great, and we improved his productivity, and he got hamstrung by some of the other issues going on in his warehouse. And he said, well, you know what? I need a warehouse consultant, Chuck. And so I recommended a warehouse consultant to him, and that warehouse consultant went in and said, yes, and we can fix this, 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 and this. And now we can really get you so that where you're firing on all cylinders with this mobile technology, just like you want to. Truth be told, he wasn't thinking about return on investment. He was thinking about the price again. And he ended up implementing none of it. And now all of it is unimproved. And the mobile technology he spent money on is now sitting in a cabinet. So I can't emphasize enough. I started this by talking about industrial engineers, continuous improvements, operational excellent people. That process is crucial. It's about the value. It's about the return on investment. It's about the time that you can get back so that you can do more with the same. You want to be able to have that agility as an organization and be able to carry it through to be able to add higher value to your organization and to your customers ultimately.
If we were in a room, I'd say if we could all give it up and thank you, Chuck, for the very informative and knowledgeable information. Again, warehouses are the unsung heroes of making our business run, and I think you've given us a new way to look at it and to keep things into perspective. I'd like to remind everybody that tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, ISM New Jersey will be hosting our latest Voice of Supply Chain. Will be hosted by Sarah Scudder, and our guest this week is Dr. Eloise Epstein. Any opportunity to hear Dr. Epstein speak, I highly recommend. Chuck, thank you again, and everyone have a good afternoon.
Take care. Thank you.